Hey everyone, Kibler here with a special preview of the new game mode coming to Hearthstone called Duels. For those of you who may have missed the reveal stream, which I hosted, I was fortunate enough to get a chance to play a sneak peek of Duels against Kripparrian, which is a lot of fun, especially since I won. On top of that, I had a chance to jump in and try another run against a wider variety of opponents, so I may just be the single most experienced Duels player in the entire world. But that won't last long, since the new game mode goes into early access today, so you all have a chance to catch up. Anyway, let's backtrack a little bit. First of all, what is Duels? Duels is a new PvP dungeon run style game mode, in which players battled out an arena-like run, trying to last as long as they can before getting 3 losses. I know that I always kind of wished that I could take my truly broken dungeon run decks and try them out against other players, and, well, now you can, because that's what Duels is all about. Just like in Dungeon Run, you pick a hero, then you choose a special hero power and signature treasure. In Duels, though, you get to build your own starting deck of 16 cards, though you can only include a single copy of each one. I think deck building in Duels is going to be very interesting, both because it's going to use a rotating set of cards from across Hearthstone's history. For instance, Nax is in fact out for the initial release, but also because of the different ways people can decide to approach it. Do you want to try to hedge your bets with a really versatile set of starting cards that can go in any direction, depending on what treasures you're offered, or do you want to try to maximize the best treasures you could be offered right away? There's also the fact that the game fundamentally changes as your run goes on. At first, you have a smaller deck and less life, so you probably don't want to build a deck with a whole bunch of card draw that's looking to play a really long game. As your run progresses, though, your deck grows, and your health goes up, but so does your opponent's. So if you take, say, an all-out aggressive approach, that may not work well long-term. I lost to a hunter opponent in my run who had a very aggressive deck that leaned on a treasure that evolved one of his creatures every turn. I really struggled against it early when my deck had fewer ramp tools and was less consistent, but I think it would have been much easier for me to tackle that later on. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that dynamic plays out in Duels as the metagame evolves over time. Because yes, I do think this game mode will ultimately have its own metagame. Anyway, speaking of which, from my relatively limited and yet still most in the world experience, it seems like the power levels of the treasures really start ramping up as your run goes on. So things can get really out of hand. I certainly had fun ramping into a Hadronox with a treasure that makes all your death rattles trigger immediately, even if it didn't seem like my opponents liked it quite as much. But that's half the fun of Duels compared to Dungeon Run. You're not just doing awesome stuff, you're doing awesome stuff and crushing real live opponents in the process. On top of all that, Duels is set up to have a rating system, much like Battlegrounds, so you can see how your skills stack up. And also Heroic Mode, which will function much like Arena, allowing people to pay an entry fee for the chance to win prizes. As a very competitive person myself, I always like the chance to add some real stakes, but I also think it's a good idea that the default mode isn't gated by an entry fee. I feel like that barrier is a big part of why Arena is pretty much a ghost town these days, as well as why Heroic Brawliseum has just so many haters. Letting people opt in to putting something on the line is a great idea, but making it mandatory can scare people away and make them feel like they're really missing out. Anyway, I am super excited for the release of Duels. I love the fact that it's a new way to play Hearthstone, but it's still fundamentally Hearthstone. Battlegrounds is fun, but it doesn't quite scratch the same itch as brewing up a new deck and trying to find the sweetest and most broken combinations. I'm sure I'm going to be playing a ton of Duels, and I look forward to seeing you on the dueling grounds.